Senator Francis Heyliger, mic, please.
Good morning, testifiers. Good morning to my colleagues. Along those lines, as my colleague spoke about different individuals making more money than others, is there a logical explanation why a police officer potentially could be making over $1 million in a span of 3 years? Because I take time out to go look at the transparency website. And when you hear the ground pay for officers coming in is $40-something thousand. But when you see some of the salaries that are being paid out and one officer potentially made over $1 million in 3 years, my mind is not processing this when it comes to law enforcement. So could you please explain to me and the public how something like that could happen, how it is happening, and what can be done to potentially curtail this?
I'm not 100% sure if the online is accurate, but I can explain you why they might make essentially more than the base pay. Is that one, overtime. Once officers work over 8 or 40 hours, they accrue overtime. Once they go over 48 hours, now they start to receive double pay. Beyond that, they also receive night differential, they receive holiday pay. If you work on a holiday pay, is double pay. If you work a night shift, depending on how many hours, it starts at 10%. If it's over 8 hours, it's 15%. If you work in a specialized unit, certain specialized units receive extra incentive for working in those units. So it's not unusual where I'm telling you, okay, police make $40,953. By the end of the year, maybe a new officer might take home $75,000 to $80,000 because of all those different things that I just named to you.
Yeah, but I think that the reference is individuals making $250,000, $300,000 as to whether or not there's a justification for the hours work. Because you do have individuals making $250,000, correct?
I mean, the answer is yes, Senator. There are individuals who've made significant resources, significant monies over the course of a year.
Correct.
And so, as the director indicated, there are several things that impacts that. Obviously, the career incentive program is one of the most lucrative I've seen in any location that I've ever worked in. So, an individual who has the exact same degree, you can have two different figures. If you come on the job and you have a master's degree, then you get 30% of your base, which is approximately $12,000. So 12 on 40 makes you at 52. However, if you were a lieutenant or a captain and you got your bachelor's degree and you're at 75,000 or 80,000, then you're getting 24,000, for the exact same degree as the person who got it at 40. And so there's a disparity for the exact same degree that could have been attained at the same time. So those are some of the nuances that we have. But then the amount of hours that individuals work influences their pay. Anything above 8 hours, Senator, anything above 8 hours, it's time and a half. So when we transition to, let's say, a 12-hour shift, every hour above 8 hours, that's time and a half. When you hit 48 hours, it's double pay. So if you're making $30 an hour, you're at $60 an hour. And on and on. And as the director indicated, there are a lot of different incentives, night differentials, and so forth. And I would say that is the most lucrative overtime process I've ever been exposed to.
Senator Francis Heyliger, you're recognized.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon to the people of the territory. Good afternoon to the testifiers. I would like to take this time to extend to Commissioner Vellenor Godspeed. I know he has shared he plans on retiring, and I hope him and his family enjoy his retirement.
Thank you.
Well, the first set of questions I want to ask has to do with, earlier this week we had OMB and they spoke about getting budgets based on performance-based budgets. And they have to do audits with the various agencies. What I want to know from you, in the past, if any of these audits have been done, and based on what you are doing currently, do you think that this would be conducive to you getting an increase, a decrease, or you think where do you think you stand right now?
Yeah, so they do perform audits. We have to submit information, the KPIs and so forth, over to the Office of Management and Budgeting. And I do believe that as organizations, we must be held accountable, and that ultimately performance does drive your demand and your needs. And so, yeah, to answer your question, I think there's a baseline that can be constructed, and then you can then say, from that point, if you achieve A, B, C, D, you can get some additional resources. The problem with that, however, is that we're a police organization. And for policing, you really have to be in the ready at all times to respond, and respond in a way that protects our community. And so it's so important that we, unlike other areas where they're talking about limiting the amount of resources for policing and defunding the police and so forth, we don't have the same issues that they have on the mainland. There's the one location that I've worked in where there's been a call for more policing. So to that question, I would just simply say that in policing, you need as much resources, particularly for a police department the likes of VIPD, that still needs additional resources to have a home.
Thank you. It was touched upon in regards to the body cameras, 300,000 in the budget. How are you vetting the potential contractor in regards to utilizing funds from the general funds as opposed to grant monies?
Yeah, one more time, can you ask the question, Senator?
Grant monies versus general fund monies to get the funding in order for the body cam.
I would go to grant funding every single day, every single time. That's a source if we can get it, and if we're not tapping into the general fund, it allows us to do more things for the territory with that resource.
Well, you said you're going to be utilizing, when I was reading here, over 11 million in grant funds to potentially offset the general fund. How do you think, if we're offsetting, what do you think those additional monies could potentially be utilized for?
You know, again, if we're offsetting $11 million in a wishful world, again, I think the primary priority of a police department that's going to be around for the next hundreds of years is to have a home where we're no longer paying rent. We paid approximately a little bit over $1 million in rent this past year. I think 1.06 or so million dollars. And it'll be good to have homes in the Virgin Islands Police Department similar to the legislature here and in St. Croix, where you have a structure where you can come home and the people know. When you have a building, it's particularly in policing or the likes of this beautiful historic building, it's a museum. It's a place where it speaks history.
Yes.
And we love to see that within the police department.
Well, let's speak about buildings that you do own. I do know you own the one in St. John. And when we did take a tour, they had quite a bit of issues. What do you think in regards to maintaining, if you are able to own a home, because you do have one and it has a lot of issues currently?
Yes.
And please give me an update as to the repairs.
Yes.
2 minutes.
So we're still waiting on the WIN retrofit. Part of that process is the whole FEMA by TEMA dynamic. So, but at least St. John belongs to us. We know it's going to get done. And the question is when, but we know it's going to get done. We're going through the process. Relative to the whole dynamic of maintaining, it's kind of like when you buy a home, right? You can also get certain warranties in some cases. You can also have a maintenance plan where you're having pest control every so often, the filters being changed, and so forth, the generator being serviced, and so forth. One of the questions that was asked earlier by, I believe it was Senator Carrion or someone else, they talked a little bit about the generator and the maintenance plan and so forth. We need to get in the cycle of having maintenance consistently. That's why the proposal was for 50 cars every single year. Even though we may be funded for, hey, here's X amount to buy 200 cars, the problem with that is that we need them now, don't get me wrong, but when they time out, they all time out simultaneously.
I want to ask a little bit, for example, if an officer, because one of the things that I saw headlines, officers doing quite a bit of things over the last year, and if for some reason an officer has been terminated from the VIPD, how does that work in in dealing, is there a record attached to them permanently? Are they able to potentially go to another peacekeeping department? How does that work if something happens? Because you're talking about bringing on another 30, and I really need to hear from you what number of officers were let go from the department for doing either illegal or unethical things.
I don't have a number for you, Senator. If you're asking me how many officers have been essentially terminated because of illegal, unethical behavior in 2020, fiscal year 2021, we'll probably have to get back with you on that. I just need to dig a little bit. But so the peace officer standard and training, it allows for law enforcement agencies to literally be able to communicate a little bit more transparent than we had been in the past, where an officer can leave from one location where they have a bad history or bad work history with multiple allegations and then go someplace else and no one actually knows what's happened. There's a little bit more transparency in the process.
So as of right now, it is possible, Mr. Chair, could I continue? So as of right now, it is possible that an officer could be terminated from the police department for assault, bad behavior, whatever, and could still go and be hired in this government as a peace officer in a different department.
Yes, it is possible.
Oh, okay. How is that not a little bit defeating the purpose in regards to protecting and serving the community? Because if you're an officer and the VIPD says you cannot work for us anymore because you're breaking the rules, we're under a consent decree, we're having all of these issues with you, but you could pop up in licensing and consumer affairs, but you're the same person with the same demeanor and the same personality. How do you think something like that should be fixed in our government? Because to me, that's opening the government for potential lawsuits if you're terminating them for such bad behavior.
Yes. So I know you use licensing and consumer affairs just as an example, but no, we're not saying that this happened at DLCA, but it can happen. I think ultimately agencies have to make decisions, and I oftentimes talk about selecting people for their character, and you can train the competence. If folks do their due diligence, we're a small territory. If you do your due diligence, you'd find out information as to why someone did something. All you got to do is ask. My HR director is here. There are certain things that we can share with law enforcement agencies, and there, as I've said before, not everyone needs to be in policing. There are people who should not be in this profession. It's a very endearing, positive profession, and when there are few people who make or take bad actions, it impacts the entire profession.
Mr. Chair, may I ask my final question?
Go ahead.
Thank you. If you had a wish list in regards to the improvement of the Virgin Islands Police Department, what would be the top 3 things that you would desire to almost guarantee from your perspective that the VIPD will be at its very best?
Excellent question, Senator. Capacity building is so important. I need the best people. I need a lot of them to be able to serve our community the best. We talk about overtime and whatnot. That can be really heard or stopped, decreased if we simply had more very good people. I talk about character, and we can develop your competence. But I need also smart people. I need good people. I need people who are going to engage. That's number 1. Number 2, I keep talking about professionalism. That's so important in an organization. But to demonstrate professionalism, you have to also exude that level of professionalism. And it starts with having a home, a place that looks like what you're trying to project for your people. When you have structures that are circa 1970 something or circa 1982, that's not becoming, it's not refreshing, and we really want to encourage professional growth in our organization. And also, again, third and most important from my perspective is that we talk about transparency. We really need to keep working towards ensuring that we are transparent so that we can have buy-in and build trust with our community. It's not about likability. It's not about, all the other stuff. It's not about your height. It's not about where you're born, It's more about taking care of your community through being professional, demonstrating accountability, and demonstrating the type of communication that would really allow people to feel a part of your police department so that you can grow as a police agency. We are so unique here in the territory. We live, eat, went to school, worship, all in the same space. And it should be so natural for people to want to protect our community.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that response.
That's almost a good that's a good ending. We close it in. So that was a good question and a very good statement for the record. I hope that everybody listened to it.